right, it's 5. Let's go ahead and begin. Do we have minutes, Mark?
We do not, and I apologize for that. I have not gotten to them yet. I thought I had done them, but apparently not, and I didn't have time coming back from vacation to do them. So my apologies. We'll have it next time.
All right. So we'll defer February minutes
Yeah.
to April. Item number 1, response to requests for proposals for the Cayuga Connector.
Yes. I can start with this if you'd like, Ted.
Yeah.
So we received 3 responses to the RFP that we sent out. One from each firm that I requested that indicated interest in participating, or that indicated interest in responding. All 3 of them responded. So if that made sense. And I sent them to you on Saturday, the day after the deadline. And I've gone through them. I also sent you earlier today a matrix, which I don't know how helpful you would find it. Whoops, this is my work. And this is awfully hard to see, but Tad, I wasn't quite sure if you had a certain way you wanted to handle this. We have the 3 proposals in your packet. We could just have a free flow discussion. If you want, I could share my thoughts on it as well, but I wanted to defer to how you wanted to go about this.
Mhm.
So, I recognize I didn't give you this matrix earlier. What I guess I can do is share with you some notes I have. Actually, I'm going to put this on a separate screen.
I would, if there's no significant objection to leading with Mark, that is what I would like to do.
Okay. So here's the original, here's the path quarter, as you have all seen. And responses that we got, starting with the alphabetical order here. The first one was Mead and Hunt. And what I liked about it, they were all good responses. I want to start with that. They really did a nice job talking about impacts to real estate and the need for coordination with the DOT. They really emphasized more than the others, a public engagement component. I don't want to just keep scrolling randomly, so I'll just pick a here we go. So they had this page that really stood out to me. I'm not sure how important that is for this project, but I defer to your input on that as well. It was not something we specifically requested, but it is something that they're emphasizing that stood out. They have ample experience with projects, pertinent projects, including this one. This was the Parmenter Street corridor that I worked with them on over half a decade ago now. So they were the project managers for this quarter. So that was, and then their fee is the highest of the 3 at $87,778. So that's a quick summary of Mead and Hunt. MSA, which is next one right here. So they also visited the site. They also emphasized WISDOT coordination, which is really important because the project, this is a good photo actually, the project will affect the fence that separates the Beltline from adjoining properties. And so WISDOT needs to be actively involved, and we've already collaborated with them on that. They have also an emphasis on a public informational meeting, MSA does. They have emphasized also the need for coordinating with the fire district, which of course this is the choke point here, and one other parcel is up by the, oh, let me go back to the map. So the 2 choke points are here at the fire station, and then this corner, which is a multifamily building, the back corner. Those are really the only 2 properties that would have any effect. It would be impacted at all by this project. Everything else is right of way. So I liked that they recognized the need for DOT coordination, and they spoke about tree impacts and et cetera. Their fee was $75,339. The last proposal is from Strand. Again, alphabetically. Strand is here. Oh, this is okay, here we go. Here's Strand. So Strand, what stood out for me with theirs, or well, several things did. I really liked this initial survey that they provided, identifying potential issues, which demonstrated familiarity as well as anything. They also have already met with the fire district and talked to them about their concerns, their issues, the fire chief specifically. They said in their proposal that they have had initial discussions with DOT. They have, of the three firms, they have the most familiarity with the city. Not a requirement, but they have extensive TIF experience with working with projects in our TIF district. Their proposal did not emphasize, didn't call out as much the need for DOT coordination, but it's obvious on the map that, and there's other indication in their proposal that they are aware of that, and there's no reason to believe that they aren't, based on past experience, that they don't know how to work with DOT. I mean, they have to in their job. So I'm not as worried about that. What they also didn't emphasize was public engagement. That was, I'm not even sure if it was even mentioned. And that was not something we specifically called out as an area of emphasis. So, and because there's the project's largely in the right of way, there, any sort of public engagement is something that, we can handle at the city's end too. So that's just my overview, my thumbnail sketch. I don't want to do all the talking. This is your decision or your recommendation to make. So I will turn it back to you, Ted. Oh, and I'm sorry, the fee for Strand was $49,500, which is $26,000 less than the second lowest. So that caught my attention as well.
All right, Carrie?
Thanks, Mark, for the summary. And that was going to be my question. Do we have the costs written down where I can just kind of quickly see them? Like, I know you just said them all, but do we have those?
Yeah. So those let's see here. This one is Mead & Hunt's. Oh, I forgot to mention that. What I did not emphasize was timeline and deliverables. So Mead & Hunt said that they would have the final design completed by May of 2025, whereas MSA and Strand both said November of this year. So Mead & Hunt was an outlier in that respect. Cost-wise, they were at 87,000, and it's in their proposal. I don't remember where exactly. Oh, here it is, right here at the bottom. So 87,778. Based on 663 hours. MSA was, here we go, 75,338 and change. And itemize their hours here as well. And then Strand is, so it's a little harder to glean, but it's right here.
Okay.
9,500.
So that's pretty significant. Like,
I thought so too.
yeah. And that might be because of like not including public engagement, those type of things, which again, like to your point, I don't know if it's necessary as much. But anyways, okay, thanks for that quick overview of costs.
Jim?
Ted, did you want our assessment now of each?
Yeah. If
Oh.
you're, I mean, I didn't give you much time with that matrix, but I wasn't quite sure. I mean, honestly, I was in vacation mode until Tuesday, so I wasn't as prepared for this meeting as I would have liked to have been, given that these came in while I was gone. So go ahead, Jim.
Okay, I didn't score it on the matrix,
Okay.
but I looked at it. I didn't like the Mead and Hunt for a couple reasons. One is they were taking 6 months for a preliminary design. They were taking another 6 months for a final design. They talk about being ready to bid it, I think, in the spring sometime. Or was it April and May?
It was here being ready to bid. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, May, June timeframe of next year.
Right, and I'm thinking that by that time, construction companies are quite busy, so I don't see their idea of construction being occurring in the summer of 2025. I just think this is a little too drawn out. The other thing is, I think, a little too much emphasis on public engagement. You know, that'd be quite different if we were talking about this path going along Century Avenue. But for the public, I don't see as much impact on this. So I really didn't consider theirs. The other two, between MSA and Strand, I thought they were both good. I got a sense from them that they really had some effort in evaluating the project. I like the fact that I think both of them said that they could complete it by November. And so that would be able to look for bidding the project in the early spring. Again, what I really liked with this is with Strand, the fact that they have had that much involvement with the city. And that also, they went into quite a few specifics where they could see potential problems or issues that had to be addressed. So in my opinion, I thought Strand had the best bid.
There's a couple hands up, Tad.
Yep. Kirsten.
Okay, so I went through all these as well, and I agree with Jim on the timeline, concerns over the timeline. I've worked with Strand on several projects, and I know that they've done several projects in Madison as well for bike infrastructure, bike ped infrastructure. And they've been tested and true. Haven't heard of any issues with them. My only concern is the price discrepancy, and I would be very curious when we're starting to see the discrepancy of almost half of the highest bid. That does raise some red flags, and so I would just be curious why their rate, why Strand's rate is so much lower than Mead and Hunt. If we saw a $10,000 or $20,000 discrepancy, that's one thing, but when we're getting that big, I'm wondering if they're leaving something out, and we just want to make sure of that. But I did like Strand's proposal the best as well.
My only response to that, I don't know the answer why theirs is significantly less. That is unusual to have such a range. But I have every confidence that they are that they have a comprehensive view of the project based on all the work they've done with other projects over the years. And I did check with the city engineer about all three firms. He said all three of them he considers to be perfectly qualified, and they've come in within, we haven't had any concerns with budget and missing things, and all three of them are, he would have no hesitation to work with any of them. If that helps allay your concerns. By the way, what I envision coming out of this discussion is hopefully if there's a consensus or a motion to recommend one of the firms, that would then be a recommendation to staff or to the council, obviously, and we would then, before it goes to the council, we would reach out to that firm and put together an agreement between the city and the consulting firm before it goes to council. So that would probably be done for the April 2nd council meeting. More hands up, Ted. Oh, we can't hear you. Oh, he's trying to tell.
He can't unmute himself or something.
I just asked to unmute. Nothing's happening. We can't hear you. I can't read lips. I'm sorry. Ask to unmute again. Anybody else get a sense of what he's saying?
No, I can't read lips either, but he's clearly concerned. So
I think is he asking, I don't know, to unmute? Are you unmute?
I've tried
No.
asking to unmute several times.
JOHN.
Oh, he's calling on John.
Oh,
Okay,
Oh,
John.
he wants John to chair. He wants John to chair the meeting. Okay.
Oh,
All right. Thank you.
thanks.
Sorry.
Well, since my hand's up,
Okay.
I'll just say also I have worked with Strang and I found them to be very, very great and nice. I think part of the discrepancy issue, as I see it, is seeing this in home repair stuff, that it's not that big a job. And so for some of these companies, they may be busy and they're not that interested in a job that's considered a smaller job. So they just bid high because they want to. But I have totally comfortable with Strang. And I don't think the $40,000 difference in the price tags is going to make them screw up this job. So that's my feeling about it. So,
And just to emphasize, it's Strand, not Strang. I think you
it's Strand, yes.
Yeah.
Strand, so. All right, Carrie, you've had your hand up for a while. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the same thing. I agree with Jim's assessment and your comments. My vote would be for Strand.
Okay. Mr. Rhodes.
So I did fill out the matrix. MSA and Strand came out same on mine. And being the steward of the district's money, I would say Strand would come out on top there as well. That would be my vote.
What did you say about MSA? It came out the same as what?
As Strand, I had them at the bottom when I did the sheet. They came out tied.
Oh, so Strand and MSA were essentially comparable, is what you're saying.
Yep,
Okay,
that's what I'm
got it.
saying. You can save, $25,000, you go that way.
Yeah. Well, since I'm unofficially chairing this, I'm hearing a sense of a consensus. Maybe this is the time if anyone want to make some motion to look at going towards Strand.
I move we go to Strand.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
This
I'll
is
second.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Kirsten.
Okay, we have a second. I didn't know who seconded, but somebody's taking
Well-
minutes on this thing.
John, you recognize who the second is, and I will record it.
Who
Yep.
seconded? I didn't know who seconded.
Kirsten.
I did.
Jim, okay. Jim Ray, all right. So any further discussion with the motion on the table?
So Tom,
I wanted to
Tom?
bring up one thing. Is there
Sure.
any way that we can change the name of this project? It's listed as bike path rather than a trail path.
Cayuga Connector. I've just always called it the Cayuga Connector. Is that the concern you have, or you have a concern with the word bike?
I have a concern with the word bike.
Yeah, I understand. It doesn't need to be called to have the word bike in it. In fact, I don't even know why. Yeah, I don't know why I could have called it shared use trail. I might have gotten that from our system that someone had called it that, but yeah, I'm happy to make sure we call it the Cayuga Connector trail or shared use path or something like that without
Yeah,
the
that's
word.
fine. I don't think that, as long as the contract is saying the same things, it doesn't matter really. the
Yeah.
title. That's fine. Ken, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Mark, a while back, we talked about the National Bicycle Trail going through Middleton. Is this gonna be part of it?
No, that comes down Parmenter Street as those routes, which I think that interest in signing that has petered out in the region. I haven't heard anything about it lately, but the route comes down Parmenter Street and is on street. But I really like that idea because it does use paths in certain jurisdictions. And I don't see why if it comes out at Cayuga that it couldn't, ultimately goes down Elmwood Avenue. So if it comes out at Cayuga, we could route it that way eventually, but let's not worry about that right now. That's an interesting idea though.
All right. Jim, you and I share the same amount of hair on the top, but I'm only seeing the top of your head. You might want to adjust your camera a little
Oh,
bit. You kind of, I've got from your glasses up. There you go. Thank you. That's better.
that better?
Yeah, much better.
And move back a little?
You're better looking than I thought. So,
Okay, thank you.
all right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. We
So
move on
that's
to
it's to recommend entering into an agreement with Strand.
Strang. That's correct.
Strand.
Sorry.
Okay, that was the motion. All right, and that was Tom's
All right.
motion. So it was Yost who made the motion, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Tad, you're still out of commission?
I am back.
No.
Oh, good. You can take over again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that we couldn't understand you right
Yeah,
away.
no, that I apologize. I was looking at the
I got
proposals.
your
and
letters
suddenly-
though. That was good,
Yes.
except
Yeah.
it was, John, even it was the right way.
Well, right way for him, but they were backwards, but it's okay.
Yeah.
They don't.
All right, so moving on to crosswalk safety on Park Street at Brookdale Drive.
Carrie, would you like to lead with this? This
Sure.
was a referral from the Public Works Committee.
Yes, so I brought this up to Public Works, and unfortunately, I think when they discussed this, I wasn't at the meeting, but they deferred it to Head Bike, which I think is great. But so I just wanted to see what options we have for pedestrian safety at this intersection of Park Street and Brookdale. So Cromrie is on the left here of our screen. And I have two daughters that go to Cromrie, so I'm really familiar with like the pickup situation there. And what I witnessed a couple months ago is at that crosswalk, there was a child that was like on their device walking across the street, and a car was coming, and they basically just like barely it was like two paths, nothing happened, but it was so frightening that I was like, you know what, I need to like bring this up to the committee to see what we can do. Because what's happening is that parents are parking on Brookdale, and then kids are coming down the sidewalk, and then they're crossing over to Brookdale. And there is a crosswalk, right? So they're using that crosswalk, but there's a lot of traffic at that time of day, right? There's high school traffic is like, I think kids are coming in from there as well, Cromrie parent traffic. And there's not sidewalks on Brookdale, unfortunately, but people are still using that for pickup. So I just don't know what, ideally it would be great to have crossing guards, like more crossing guards at Cromrie. The four-way intersection is also problematic. But this in particular, I just, I saw this happen, and my daughters have also, commented on this as well. I don't know if anyone else on the committee has concerns about this, but I just wanted to see if we have any potential solutions. And then, that four-way intersection is another area. There is the lighted crosswalk. What do you call those again? The
RFB, the rapid rectangular flashing beacons.
Yes, that's it.
The roof bigs.
Yes, there is one of those down further on Donna Drive at the main entrance to Cromery, which I think is helpful. And so, I mean, one option is maybe having another lighted sign there. I mean, I think a crossing guard would probably be even more effective, but I don't know like where the funding comes for crossing guards. Is that something the city provides, the school district? Anyways, that's the topic I wanted to bring up.
Kirsten,
Yes, I walk that area a considerable amount, and I think one of the biggest issues is that during school pickup and drop off, all of the cars are parked along that section, and so when kids start to walk out, they're almost invisible, I guess, walking. It's almost as if they're walking through cars. We have the RRFB at the path, the creek path, and then the RRFB on Donna. One thing that we could try is having the flags. So I think that having another RRFB that close to the creek path RRFB might be troublesome. We could try having the flags, you know, the bucket with the flags on each side. I think a crossing guard would be great because traffic in that area is high speed and very congested at both rush hours. And I have seen a lot of drivers drive very recklessly there, even though police officers are oftentimes there. But one of the problems is the parked cars, and that blinds that area when kids are crossing. But we can't get rid of the parking spots because parents would have a conniption fit. So I'm wondering if we can also use paint to highlight that area a little bit more, the green paint, or any type of raised, I guess, crosswalk area, just to get them a little bit more visible.
I was actually wondering too about a bump out, you know, taking a curb extension, it's called, you know, having narrowing the road so that the parking lane is temporarily obstructed, because you're supposed to be, is it 15 feet back from a crosswalk, or is that from an intersection? I always forget no, it's 4 feet. Wait, I should know that, and I don't off the top of my head. That's embarrassing. Kirsten, do you know what the spacing from a crosswalk? Do you happen to know what that is?
I don't, but I can tell you that that's almost always blocked. I mean, during school.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, here's the answer is you can see the yellow paint here.
Yep.
So
15 feet.
I want to say 15 feet. That was my, but the point remains. I mean, this is a good example. This shows how a kid that's leaving the sidewalk and entering the street is not going to be seen right away. Whereas if they had if this were, it's probably very hard to see, especially for you, Jim. I'm sorry, what I'm pointing to. But if you could have, let me blow this up here. You know, if there was something built, if this were a curb extension that came out, that would help. But just an idea.
Yeah, no, thanks, Kirsten. I think those are great ideas. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is that there's 5th graders through 8th graders, because I think sometimes what I've heard is that there's not as many crossing guards because they're saying they're older kids, but these are still really young kids. Like they're 5th graders are still, you know, they're 10 years old.
Could we do a traffic calming median there that would slow traffic down? Do we have the room with the bike lane? I guess we would have to then bring the truck back or the parking back too. Oh, I apologize for that. But I'm wondering if we could do a median in the middle as well, and that would narrow the lanes and would act as a calming device.
The effect of that would be, in order to keep the bike lanes here, you would have to essentially, if you can see where I'm drawing, you know, this would have to have a median that is, I mean, 6 feet is ideal, but we might not have that room, quite that much room. A 6 feet can hold a bicycle, you know, as it's crossing the street, but you would have to lose the parking lane back here. It'd have to taper down and then taper back. So you'd probably lose a parking space on each side. But you'd gain the median then.
I like the idea though, Mark, of your bump out. If you had the bump out back enough that it actually kept cars from being too close to the crosswalk. So imagine a bump out that was say 20 feet long. That would, so no car could accidentally or purposely go past into the yellow curb and park there. And guarantee that you not only have the bump out, but you'd get a blockage of a view. Couldn't happen because the bump out was far enough. I mean, that seems to me more logical because the street's pretty narrow there. And trying to put something in the middle is going to cause maybe more complication because now cars will be swerving over towards the right side and the kids are there.
Well, if there's the bump out at, I'm not bump out, the median at North Avenue and Park Lawn,
Mhm.
and that sign gets hit quite a bit.
Yeah,
Let me just go to that. The only disadvantage that I can think of with the curb is the snowplow drivers.
Yeah,
It's gonna be harder to keep that clear.
yeah, but that's a diminishing worry now, right?
Well, yeah. So, this is an example of what Kirsten was
yeah.
mentioning.
Yeah.
What an old photo, wow. And so you can see how you lose the parking lane when it's the yellow curb here gets to be much less parking. Well,
Yeah, my concern and why I said is I've been in situations where it narrows over to the right, but cars pull up and park anyways, and so it makes it suddenly tight to avoid that center thing because cars don't stop far enough back from that intersection, and for some way the other kind of forces that. Either one I think is fine. I think an object like that is probably better than the light.
so yeah, I would say this is 15 feet. Actually, there's
Yeah, see, you've got the fire hydrant. If you somehow did a bump out so that you started right after a fire hydrant, so essentially nobody could park within 40 feet or so of that, you lose literally one spot is all you lose.
the only other concern is drainage.
Mhm.
Playing the role of engineer here today. The good thing is that this inlet, it slopes down this way. So the
Yeah.
water would come in here, and then you could design this so that it would bump out, and actually that
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be a big problem for drainage at all, actually.
No, I think you could just move that drain thing a little better.
Well,
Funnel it down somehow.
actually, I like that it's there. The fact
Yeah.
that it's there and then you bump it out, that means the water's not going to get blocked.
Yeah.
So I think actually this could work really well.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, a way to avoid having to do drainage issues and still get your bump out would be to swap the position of the bike lane and the parked cars so that the bike lane's interior and defended by the parked cars. That's what most cities are doing now. And then have the bump out sort of floating out from the curb. You'd still have the bump out pushing the cars back, and having the bump out like that would also not block the drain channel, which could make the engineering easier.
So this is a bummer. I was hoping this was done. So what
You're
Tad
making
is,
me dizzy, Mark.
well, I'm sorry. What Tad's describing is unfortunately not available on Google Street View yet. There's an example on Bassett Street in Madison where this has happened. Yeah, is there another example locally that you can think of, Tad, or something that's been in place for a while?
I mean, I can envision it. I don't.
Oh, actually, here we go. The air photo works. Well, this is even better.
Yeah. Yes, exactly like that.
Yeah. So, not sure if there's quite enough room on Park Street to do this, but this keeps the bike lane to the right of the vehicles where they're parked.
Kirsten.
Yeah, normally I would like that type of bike lane configuration, except for in this situation where people are dropping their kids off and the chance of getting doored as a cyclist goes up much higher as kids are jumping out of the car from that passenger side.
Yeah.
Good point.
I also wanted to mention that I mean, this is probably a major issue for like 15 minutes of the day during the school year, right? So it's like mostly at pickup time. Not even drop off necessarily, because drop off is more staggered, but at pickup, it's just, everyone's trying to get there at one time. So that's where I was thinking, like, I like the idea of the bump out. But crossing guards just kind of come to mind as like a solution, but I don't know how, is that something the school has to ask for? I don't know the process for that.
What I have heard is that staffing is, they have trouble getting crossing guards, but I don't know how pervasive that is, if it's as much of a problem as it is getting bus drivers. John, you would know about bus drivers.
I know about bus drivers.
Yeah. But there is a crossing guard, I believe, at Cromrie now over here, right? Is that at Ravine or Northbrook, one of the two? Isn't there one there now?
Yeah, yep, at Ravine.
At Ravine. Oh, and that's a good example of where there's a median in the middle, which frankly, I think I see the benefit of it in terms of channeling traffic, but it makes this left turn a little weird for people, but it's obviously pedestrian safety is the most important factor. So I don't really have a strong opinion on this, but this is the option that one of the options we were talking about, was having this kind of approach.
Well, further down on Park Street by Terrace, when we put that little island thing in the middle, it got rid of 90% of the problems of people not knowing whether they're supposed to slow down, stop, or anything. And it forces people to pay attention. And maybe that's half the issue, is just anything that will cause somebody to not just drive, but pay attention that there's something there, And I think a bump out or a center island would both do this exactly the same thing. My question partly though is I don't walk by here, but I do pick up middle school kids on buses, and the thought that middle school kids go all walk down the sidewalk until they get to that crosswalk and cross there. My sense is that doesn't happen much at all. They're probably just all, bolting across the street anywhere they feel like it. It may be a problem that can't be fixed. I don't know.
This is the bump out example. And Greenway Station, we've got some of these.
Yeah.
Jim?
The thing about the island in the middle, I think that can work very well for traffic. But if we're talking heavy pedestrian use, what happens there in the winter is the crosswalk part of the island doesn't always get cleared.
Yeah.
And so if you got a bunch of kids, as you had said, a lot of these kids just avoid things like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how helpful that would be.
So you're saying that this part doesn't get shoveled out?
No, it probably does initially, but what I'm thinking of is when you then when the snow plows go through again or anything like that, that has a tendency to get a lot of ice buildup there. And you'll get some people live on corner that might go over there and shovel it out, but for the most part, it just stays that way.
Yeah.
And so what you wind up doing is you wind up walking around that.
Whereas the advantage of the, let's see here, the advantage of this curb extension is that it's an extension of the sidewalk, and so that gets cleared by the adjoining property owner as a matter of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, now I like that long extended one you just showed over there.
I'll do an air photo view. Sorry to fly around all the time.
Yeah, it just pushes it back to make sure that cars are well aware that they're not going to get real close to that intersection.
Yeah,
Personally, that's my favorite choice here. Or a crossing guard.
makes sense.
So is that the feedback from the committee then? There's a couple hands
Dale?
up still. Yep.
Yeah, so I have my meeting with Jared tomorrow morning. let me just bring it up to his attention and see if there is funding for crossing guard and there's what the problem is getting them out there. I'll just run it by him.
That's the principal.
No, he's the district finance guy. See if he's
Oh,
got it. Yeah,
And
Jared Posing.
Dale,
Deputies.
if you do, oh, sorry, if you do talk to him, I mean, the other area is the four-way intersection, like maybe that's even a better place for the crossing guard because again, like there just seems to be a lot of people that don't know how to use four-way intersections and there's a lot of kids crossing there too.
The beauty of, I think, of a crossing guard is if somebody literally walks out in the middle of traffic and stands there. And, you know, as a bus driver, I encounter them all the time, and it's very clear that there's somebody there and, you know, they can go out and they can kind of deal with odd and unusual situations that, you know, they just get out there. And in some ways, if they could afford one, that's cheaper than rebuilding the whole street.
Yeah, I agree, John. There's one at Park Street and South Avenue.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, that's tremendously helpful.
Yeah.
And yeah, so,
Yeah,
and there's
that's
a
at the
lighted
top of the hill,
sign
yeah.
there, right? But this is like, the crossing guard is really what's needed there. So it's,
Yep.
and
Ken?
those kids are walking to Elm Lawn.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I'm looking at this and, you know, you're supposed to be driving 15 miles an hour through school zones when children are present.
Yeah.
And, you know, it comes back to, you know, police enforcement, but, you know, it's the recognition of drivers that they're in a school zone, even with that sign there, that it's just frustrating with the lack of reasonable drivers in this city on a lot of occasions. So that's my only, just a shot in the dark on that comment. Thank you.
Thanks for all the discussion. I appreciate this.
So it sounds like at the moment our recommendation is for Dale to have his talk tomorrow.
Yeah, I think if that's not option, then I think there's some preference at least towards a curb extension or whatever.
Yeah.
A bump.
Okay, Mark, so clarify something for me. If we're gonna wait for Dale to have his talk, what do we need to do?
You can just defer this. If there's
defer
not a
action.
motion, I mean, if there's just gonna be a
All right.
conversation tomorrow that you don't have to take action on this now.
All right, sounds good.
I mean, or what you could do is take a position of indicating the preference for a crossing guard. But if that's not an option, then, you know, what's your fallback idea? I mean, you could articulate that as a motion if you want.
Yeah, it strikes me this is not something that requires a motion. They're just looking for a general guidance and recommendation.
Right.
It's
Right.
sort of in there, embedded in the minutes and everything.
All right.
So I'll just is the consensus so should I just reflect in the minutes that the consensus is that determining whether there's a opportunity to have a crossing guard there. But if that's not an option, then the curb extension is the preference.
That's what it sounds like to me, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shouldn't we include the specifics of Dale making a contact or not?
That I'm indicating in the minutes that Dale, as the school district representative, is going to internalize that discussion.
Okay.
It's fine. Okay, that's good feedback. You ready to move on, Tad, or what do you want to do?
Yeah. Well, it's 5:45. There had been discussion about wrapping up soon, and I know Kirsten also has a time issue. Um, do we have, I guess my question then is, do we have interest in dealing with these next two items right away? Or are people okay with deferring them until the next meeting? Do we think we have time? Who wants to dig in? Jim?
I would say we ought to defer it. I think the next topic might generate quite a bit of conversation. And so I would recommend probably deferring. And if we don't have to address the bike week issue, that to just defer both of those for the next meeting.
All right,
Yeah, I concur. If I could say about number 3, because I'm on a council. That, I mean, there's a general discussion about, do we have too many committees or too many people who have to sit on multiple committees because we have liaisons here and there. And so it's a big overall process in the city at looking at, you know, what should the committee structure be, and do we have every committee to say, are we good as we are? Do we think we're fine? Do we need more input from somebody else? Do we have too much input from somebody else that doesn't need to be there? So I think that requires a little thought and discussion and time. So I would certainly opt for postponing number 3. I don't know anything about number 4, can't say.
I think number 4 was essentially going to be a bit of a brainstorming session, so I'm fine with pushing that as well. Give people a lot of time to brainstorm. Be brainstorming.
And if you have ideas for me, or Tad, feel free to reach out to us.
Yes.
You know, I'm happy to, always available as a resource. I'm extraordinarily busy this week, catching up on vacation, and there's several fires right now. In terms of updates, staff updates, I will tell you that their new zoning ordinance is in effect. So all the hard work that you did and other committees, we have a new zoning ordinance. So that went into effect on March 1st. I have not worked on the active transportation plan at all. I was working on the RFP this last time and the zoning stuff, but I'm back from vacation now with nothing else scheduled for a while. So I plan to turn to that hopefully middle of next week. That's what I have for updates.
All right. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to address in the next session? Honestly, perhaps we should just, if you have that right now, we should email Mark. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. And we did have a carryover item that I also have not gotten to. And Tad, you had asked about lighting at Branch Street and at the Maywood Century intersection, and I did talk
Oh,
to
yeah.
I'll report back on that at the future. I might just email you individually. So I'll follow up with you.
Kirsten.
Yeah, the only other thing that I want added on is something that I had brought up a couple months ago, is adopting Madison's plowing for bike paths on weekends and on holiday periods. Might as well talk about that now, since it would be work towards next winter.
Yeah. I know there was an internal meeting. I think I actually mentioned it at the last, but I'll make sure we get back to that too.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like plowing is done for the year.
Until that late April snowstorm.
Okay.
All right. Since there's no further business at this time, we're adjourned.
All right. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you, everybody.
April 11th would be our next meeting.
All right. See everybody then.
All right. Thanks. Bye.